Dear distinguished viewers, I highly welcome you to today's session of Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO candidates. My name is Salau Abubakar Olaoluwa. I will be taking you history. The topic we will be looking at today is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, which is being called OPEC. At the end of today's lesson, we have some aims and objectives we are looking at achieving. And these aims and objectives include that at the end of the lesson, students will be able to, first one, examine the origin of OPEC and how it was established. The second one is to highlight the aims and objectives of OPEC. And thirdly, to be able to identify the achievements and the challenges facing OPEC as an organization. Now we are looking at OPEC. What is OPEC? OPEC is a trade international organization. Though just like other international organizations that are being constituted by foreign countries, OPEC as an organization is a trade organization on its own that looks at the affairs of petroleum products around the world. So the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries is being established, or is an organization that enables the cooperation of leading oil producing countries and oil dependent countries in order to collectively influence the global oil market and maximize profit. And the organization was established in Baghdad, the capital of Iran, in the year 1960. And it was formed as a reaction to the outrage and the exploitation of multinational companies who are exploiting the host country who owns these natural resources. So the major reason why OPEC was established by those countries that has oil as their major resources or major reserve is that they want to ensure that the international companies, which are multinational companies who are operating in the industry along with them, are not exploiting them as a nation. Also, it is important to know that at inception, the headquarters of OPEC was in Switzerland. But later, after 5 years of their existence, their headquarters was being moved from Switzerland to Vienna in Austria. After the organization makes some negotiation and agreement with the Austrian government, and the government is ready to give them some benefit in hosting their headquarters in the country. Now we will examine the origin of OPEC. We'll look firstly at the formation. The OPEC was founded in Baghdad, Iran in September 1960, when major oil producing countries as at that time come together to look at how their interests can be protected. And they think that coming together to form an organization is what can actually yield a positive result. That when all of them come together, speak with one voice, and say the same thing to all these oil companies, that is when their interests can actually be well protected. Then we'll look at the motivation for the creation of the organization. The motivation for the creation of the organization is to ensure that the oil countries are not being exploited by the oil producing companies, and to make sure that the countries that owns this oil are able to do what? To maximize their resources and get adequate revenue from the resources that is being exploited from their countries. Then lastly, we'll look at the headquarters. the headquarters of the company, of the organization, which is OPEC, was initially being at Switzerland, but later the headquarters was moved from Switzerland to Vienna in Austria, which their headquarters still exist till present. Then we will be looking at the structure of membership of OPEC. At inception, OPEC actually have 5 founding members, and these 5 founding members till today are still members of OPEC, and they are being given preferential decision-making policy when the members of the OPEC comes together to make decision. And the 5 members include Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. These are the 5 countries that met together in September 1960 in Baghdad to actually establish and create the organization before others joined them. Then we will look at the nature and the current member of OPEC as of today. The number of members of OPEC as an organization has changed and varies over time. Some members have joined and some have left, and some are as a result of one reason or the other. But presently, the organization actually have 12 member states, which include Algeria, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Libya, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and lastly, Venezuela. And these countries are being arranged alphabetically without any preference for arrangement. And also, we'll look at something that is being called the OPEC Plus. When we look at OPEC Plus, presently, OPEC members does not go in line with all oil-producing countries. And there are some other oil-producing countries that are not members of OPEC. Example of this country is Malaysia. So what now happened with OPEC Plus is that some of these oil-producing countries that are not member of OPEC also try to go in line with the decision of OPEC as an organization, and they work in line with their policy formulation, and also goes in line with the implementation strategy of OPEC in making sure that oil-producing countries' interests are being protected. And the 12 members of OPEC, along with these non-members that are also oil-producing, are what we call OPEC Plus. And it is very important to know that some countries are being given the observatory policy to come and observe the session of OPEC. An example of this country is Brazil. Now we'll be looking at the aims and objectives of OPEC, which is the reason why the organization is established. And these aims and objectives are what actually informed the activities and the actions the organization as a whole actually takes. And the aims and objectives includes stabilization of oil prices. That is the most important thing. They want to make sure that the price of oil is being stabilized, to make sure that the interest of both the oil producing countries are being protected, and also the consumers, their interests are also being protected, whereby it is not just at the discretion of multinational oil companies to decide this is what the price can be at any time. Also, the coordination and harmonization of oil policies. They want to make sure that oil policies across member states are being harmonized. The same decision, the same concession, the same percentage of sharing profit are equal among member countries in their negotiation with multinational oil companies. Also, steady supply of oil to consuming nations. They also wanted to make sure that the interest of their customers, which are the oil consuming nation, is also being protected in ensuring that there is steady supply of oil products to them, to ensure that they are not just being disappointed at any time. Also, protection of members' interests. This is a very germane aims and objective of OPEC. They want to make sure that the interest of their members is being protected in negotiation with multinational companies that are in the oil sector, and to make sure that they are able to maximize revenue that is being generated from their natural resources, which is oil. Also, ensuring efficient and uninterrupted supply of petroleum to consuming nation, which means that though oil is being supplied regularly, they also wanted to make sure that the petroleum products, which include some other like aviation fuel, diesel, petrol, kerosene, and other oil materials, are steadily being supplied after they has been refined by refineries. And lastly, fixing an allocation of production quota to member states. They also wanted to make sure that member state does not just produce and push out crude oil. They wanted to make sure that they regulate the amount of oil each country produce per day. Now we'll be looking at the organs of OPEC. OPEC has 5 major organs that helps him in carrying out their functions and in achieving their aims and objectives. And these organs include the conference, which is the conference of the nations, the member nation, which are being mostly represented by the Minister of Petroleum or the equivalent in each member country, the Board of Governors, the Secretariat, the Appeal Committee, and lastly, the OPEC Fund for International Development. Now we'll be looking at the achievements of OPEC as an organization since its inception, when it was established and created in the year 1960, what they've been able to achieve over time. The first one we'll be looking at is the creation of common fund to alleviate financial problem of the members. They make sure that a special fund was being created separately, and this fund are being majorly used to help any member that is in need. Secondly, checking the activities of the multinational company. They also wanted to make sure that they control their activities and they check the excesses of multinational companies that operate in the oil sector. Then thirdly, regulation of production and price. They've been able to achieve and make sure that the production level and supply of oil produce, whether crude oil or other oil materials, are being regulated, and the price it's being sold at the market to the final consumer, they make sure that it is well regulated and stabilized. And also participation of members in oil exploration. They come together as a single body to make sure that they engage in oil exploration of new oil field in member states territory. And also problems are jointly solved by member. They make sure that when each of their member engage or encounter problems and challenges, all other nations that are members of OPEC comes together. They rally around the member that is in problem to make sure they are assisting in finding a lasting and good solution to the problem and challenges they are facing. And lastly, playing major role in international politics due to the role of oil. It is important to know that energy is the drive of civilization, and the most popular energy that is being used to drive civilization in current age is oil. So this gives OPEC a very important edge in contributing to international politics and making sure that they play their part in prosperity of human race. Now we'll be looking at the problems and challenges of OPEC. The first one is the threat to oil price stabilization. As we previously mentioned, some countries that are oil producing countries are not members of OPEC. So these non-members are also creating problem in ensuring that the price of oil is being stabilized, as they sometimes goes against the decision of OPEC and the policy implementation process of OPEC. And also disagreement over quota system. Even among member states, some member states does not agree with the quota that is being given to them, because they will believe that they have projection of what they actually wanted to generate per year, and when OPEC actually tell them not to produce beyond certain level, it will affect their own projection, and this leads to disagreement and confusion among member states. Also, we look at economic depression and recession. When economic depression and recession happens, it affects the demand for oil produce. This greatly affects the projection of OPEC in stabilizing price. And also, we look at international crisis. A lot of international crisis has been happening over time, which has directly affect OPEC as an organization. It affects their decision implementation, the policy, their policy plan, the proper implementation of their policy plan is usually being disrupted by international crisis. Example of it is the Iraqi war in the 1990s. Then we look at oil storage by some developed countries. It has been known that some developed countries has also gotten hold of themselves, whereby they have large storage that can last them for 5 or more years. So this storage actually affected the projection of OPEC, and it also affect their policy implementation. Then we look at fall in prices of oil. Some other factors within the international system, negotiation of trade, also affect the price of oil, which sometimes is not being envisaged by OPEC, and these factors are not within their control. So when it happens, it affects the whole international trading system and directly affect oil price. And when this happens and oil price falls in the international market, is a problem and challenges that also face OPEC. And we look at rivalry for leadership between Saudi Arabia and Iran. We should note that Saudi Arabia and Iran has political differences, and these differences, despite being both of them being members of OPEC, it also leads to rivalry between the two of them, and it affects unity and harmony within the organization. And lastly, we will look at political disagreements leading to war between Iraq and Iran. Recollect that both Iran and Iraq are members of OPEC, and when an escalated war, this is not like conflict, is a real escalated war that happens between Iran and Iraq, it actually also affects OPEC as an organization. Now we'll be looking at practice question. The practice question we are looking at today, we have 3 questions that we'll be looking at as our practice question. The first question is to list all the African members that are members of OPEC. The first question is asking, when was OPEC founded? And the last question is, the headquarters of OPEC is located at where? So for the first question, presently Africa as a continent has 4 countries that are members of OPEC, and these countries include Algeria, Angola, Libya, and Nigeria. Those are the 4 member countries of OPEC that are docile in Africa. Also, we will look at the question of when was OPEC founded. The establishment and origin of OPEC started in Baghdad in 1960, Iran. So OPEC was actually founded in the year 1960, September precisely, the capital city of Iran, which is Baghdad. And also lastly, the headquarters of OPEC. It is important to know that though at inception the headquarters of OPEC was in Switzerland, but the headquarters was later moved from Switzerland in the year 1965 to Vienna in Austria. Thank you very much. That's the end of today's class.
Eko Learners Support. a support program of the Lagos State Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education for WAEC and NECO candidates.
If you have any contribution, comment, or reservation about today's class, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Your feedback is very important to us. Get in touch with us through the comment section or any of the social media handle that is being displayed on the screen. Thank you.